The cross-sectional area. Muscle cross-sectional area is a major factor influencing muscle force production. Indeed, force production correlates more closely with a muscle's thickness than its total volume. Thus, shorter, thicker muscles generate more force than longer, thinner muscles. Cross-sectional area is related to the size of the myofibrils. As myofibrils become larger through the use of what's referred to as hypertrophy, muscles increase in cross-sectional area and are able to generate more force. In terms of the fiber arrangement, pinnate fiber arrangements generate more total force than their parallel counterparts. This fiber arrangement allows more muscle fibers to reside in a given area. More muscle fibers effectively increase the muscle's cross-sectional area and their ability to generate force. Pinnate muscles sacrifice range of motion for increased strength and speed. In terms of the muscle length, the relationship between the thick and thin filaments is influenced by a muscle's length. That is, whether it is shortened, relaxed, or stretched beyond its resting length. In shortened muscles, there is less distance for the thick and thin filaments to overlap any further. This decreases their ability to produce force. In contrast, a muscle at resting length has space to shorten as well as maximal interaction between the thick and thin filaments. This allows the greatest force production. As a muscle stretches beyond its resting length, the number of cross bridges formed between the actin and the myosin is diminished. Fewer cross bridges are formed, which means less force production is possible. This diagram illustrates the length-tension relationship. Muscles at resting length are capable of generating the most force. Interaction between the thick and thin filaments is limited in shortened and stretched muscles. Earlier, we classified muscles by their fiber arrangement, but we are now ready to classify fibers according to their type, which is determined not only by their anatomy, but also by the way they produce energy from ATP. Slow twitch fibers are also referred to as slow oxidative fibers. Slow twitch fibers contract slowly, but they are very resistant to fatigue. They rely on aerobic energy production, and these are the muscles that we use for long-duration activities such as walking and jogging. Fast twitch fibers, on the other hand, contract rapidly. They tend to be very powerful, but they fatigue quite quickly. Fast twitch fibers tend to be larger in diameter than slow twitch fibers due to having more myofilaments. They rely on anaerobic energy production, and these are used for short-duration activities such as sprinting and lifting of weights. Intermediate fibers, or fast oxidative glycolytic fibers, have characteristics of both the slow twitch and fast twitch fibers. Some evidence suggests that these fibers will adapt to the body's demands. For example, as a distance runner trains, the intermediate fibers begin to behave like slow twitch fibers and produce energy anaerobically. In someone training as a power lifter, these fibers adapt and produce energy anaerobically, assisting the fast twitch fibers. Thus, you can think of intermediate fibers as reservists waiting to be called upon when the need arises. The distribution of fiber types is such that we have intermingled and genetically determined fibers. Those with higher concentration of slow-twitch fibers have longer, leaner muscles and predisposition to endurance activities. Those with higher concentration of fast-twitch fibers have larger, thicker muscles and are predisposed for sprinting and/or bodybuilding. Now let's take a look at the different types of muscle contractions. Some muscle contractions initiate movement, while others control movement. Still, there are others that stabilize the joints and maintain the position of the body. Isometric contractions occur when tension is generated in a muscle, but the muscle length and the joint angle do not change. This type of contraction is used to stabilize the joints rather than to create movement. Pushing or pulling against an immovable object or holding an object in a fixed position requires effort by the muscles, but no motion in the joints. Isotonic contractions, on the other hand, do change the muscle length and create movement. There are two types: concentric contractions, which is when the muscle shortens, such as lifting a book off of a table, and eccentric contractions, which is when the muscle lengthens, and this is what we see when we slowly lower a book to the table. Now let's consider the relationship that muscles have with one another. Muscles group themselves into those responsible for a motion, those assisting with motion, and those working against a motion. For example, the agonists are muscles that create the joint movement, and they are referred to as the prime movers. Synergists assist the agonists in creating a movement. They stabilize, steer, or contribute to a particular joint movement. They also have the same action or actions and are considered synergists. Antagonists, on the other hand, perform the opposite actions of an agonist. For example, flexion versus extension. And these are critical for proper posture and controlling and finishing movements. And here we have the anterior view of the muscles of the human body. And here we have the posterior view. Now let's take a look at the levers that are found in the human body. Lever systems can be arranged in different configurations to accomplish different tasks. 3 different configurations are found in the body, which include first-class levers, second-class levers, and third-class levers. First-class levers promote balanced strength and are found between the head and the spine. Second-class levers are the most powerful, and they can be found in the ankle. Third-class levers are the most common, and they promote speed and range of motion. Now let's consider proprioception. We have seen how the motor neuron, which is part of the nervous system, initiates muscle contraction and contributes to force production. The nervous system also contributes to the health and function of muscles through proprioception. Proprioception is an overall awareness of the body's position. This awareness is independent of vision, and it is critical in preventing injury and creating efficient movement. The nervous system communicates with muscles, tendons, and joints by way of proprioceptors. There are various types of proprioceptors. The muscle spindles, which are distributed throughout the skeletal muscle, and they monitor changes in the tissue length. The Golgi tendon organs. These are woven into the connective tissue in tendons, and they monitor changes in muscle tension. The vestibular apparatus, which is located in the inner ear, it provides feedback about the position of the head. The mechanoreceptors. These are specialized nerve endings that deform in response to pressure, and they indicate the position of movement of associated structures. Now let's talk about range of motion. Range of motion is a term used to describe the extent of movement possible at a joint. Each joint has a range of movement that is normally available at that joint. This normal range can be limited by several factors, including the shape of the bones that form the joint, the ligaments that hold the bones together, the length of the muscles that cross that joint, the amount of tone or nervous system control in the same muscles, injury or chronic response to an injury, such as swelling or scar tissue formation, and other factors like age and gender. When we discuss active range of motion, we are referring to the client's ability to move a given body part through its possible ranges of motions independently. Passive range of motion is when we, as the therapist or interventionist, move the client's joint through its possible ranges of motion while the client rests. Resisted range of motion is when the client meets resistance from the practitioner in an attempt to produce movement at a joint. So we will now summarize the main points that we learned in Chapter 3, our study of myology. Muscle tissue is one of the 4 primary tissue types in the human body. The 3 types of muscle tissue are cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. Each has a specialized function reflecting its anatomical configuration and location. Skeletal muscles serve several purposes in the body, including initiation of motion, maintenance of posture, protection of underlying structures, generation of heat, and fluid pumping. Factors that influence skeletal muscle names include fiber direction, location, action, size, shape, and number of heads. Skeletal muscle tissue has several important properties essential to its function. These include extensibility, elasticity, excitability, conductivity, and contractility. Contractility is unique to muscle tissue. Muscles and muscle fibers are organized into multiple layers by layers of connective tissue, including the epimysium, the perimysium, and the endomysium. This arrangement protects fragile muscle fibers and directs forces towards the bones. The sarcolemma, which is the cell membrane of muscle cells, contains multiple nuclei and a sarcoplasm that houses the specialized organelles. Myofilaments are specialized proteins responsible for force production. Troponin, tropomyosin, and actin proteins form the thin filaments, while myosin proteins make up the thick filament. Thick and thin filaments interact according to the sliding filament mechanism to generate force within a muscle. This process is initiated and governed by the nervous system using electrical signals called action potentials. Factors influencing the amount of force generated by muscles include the number of motor units recruited, muscle cross-sectional area, fiber arrangement, and muscle length. Slow twitch, fast twitch, and intermediate types of muscle fibers make energy differently and serve individual purposes. The distribution and development of these fibers is dependent upon genetics, muscle function, and patterns of physical activity. Muscles generate isometric, concentric, and eccentric contractions. Together, these contractions stabilize the body while generating and controlling movement. Muscles are organized as agonists responsible for movement, synergists working together, or antagonists balancing each other. Healthy relationships between muscle groups are critical to posture and functional movement. Lever systems, first, second, and third class levers, are present in the human body. Different arrangements of the axis, force, and resistance accomplish different goals, including balance, power, speed, and range of motion. Proprioception describes awareness of body position independently of vision. Proprioceptors, such as the muscle spindles, Golgi tendon organs, vestibular apparatus, and mechanoreceptors, enhance movement and protect the structures involved. Range of motion refers to the extent of movement possible at a joint. Active range of motion is voluntary movement without outside assistance. It requires coordinated effort between multiple systems of the body. Passive range of motion requires movement from an outside source. It is used to assess and feel and inert structures such as ligaments and joint capsules. Resisted range of motion utilizes controlled opposition to movement to evaluate the health of dynamic structures like the muscles and tendons. Okay, so our assignment for this week, this is assignment number 3 for week number 4 of the induction prep course. First, you're going to describe the 3 types of muscle tissue in the human body. You're going to list the 5 functions of skeletal muscle. You're going to list and discuss the steps involved in initiating muscle contraction. And then you're going to state why it is or will be important for you to have a thorough understanding of the topic of myology as it pertains to your current or future profession. Please place your response to this question in the comments section below this video. And that would be for question number 4. You're going to place that response in the comments section of this video. Okay, so I look forward to receiving your assignments and reading your comments. Enjoy the rest of your week and do take care.